Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the Season 2 finale of Scurvy Shitlist. And who do we have here? Why, it's none other than Fed and Fraud. However, it's not going to be a traditional first segment. I think everyone has roasted the fuck out of these two nitwits. So instead, allow me to be personal. Back in 2020, when I was starting my red pill journey, you could say, I first learned about these guys from Think Before You Sleep, before he cucked out to Brittany Venti. And I remember those first few episodes of Fresh and Fit. They were a lot more calm. They were less scandalous. And also, actual conversations were going on. Not anymore. That's not happening. The modern day Fresh and Fit is just shit like that. Just baboons screeching on top of each other. And so nothing actually gets said. And it's just boring to watch if you have an IQ higher than 100. But something else too. I used to trust these guys with giving pretty good advice. In the beginning, it kind of was nice hearing like MGTOW advice from people who are not MGTOW. Kind of instilled me some hope that it's like I don't need to completely abandon women or whatnot. But as the show went on, it just devolved into screeching. And also, as these two fuckwits got popular, a lot more information has been leaked. For instance, Myron right here is a Fed, or was a Fed. As for Fresh, well, you're gonna hear a little bit about his situation later on in the video. But getting back to my old memories of listening to these guys. Not for a whole episode, but just certain clips and segments. I always thought, Myron was a pretty smart dude. I felt like he was actually able to articulate his arguments. He was able to deliver them in a calm and collected manner. And he also had a much greater control over the atmosphere of the show. He was the one to, just set the mood, basically. And as for Fresh, he's just kind of Myron's yes man. He did have some good points every now and then. But as the years went on, and people actually started to dig into them, I don't think this guy right here has had 1,000 bodies. I don't think he has had sex with 1,000 people. And I already said my piece about Myron Boy right here. I also remember when Better Bachelor was on the show. And, he said that the format that these two discovered, basically, it's like it's gonna get them in massive levels of popularity. He was right about that. Fresh and Fit did gain a lot of fucking followers. However, these two have completely missed the warning that Better Bachelor gave them, in that you don't let the popularity go to your head. And also Joker thought that, these guys were pretty well grounded in reality. But these days, that's certainly not the case. Anyways, enough of me rambling. Let's get back into the video proper. I first learned about these guys back in 2020 when I was just starting my red pill journey. Still had that red pill rage inside of me. And when I saw some clips of their podcast, I thought these guys were actually doing a good job about spreading the message and teaching the red pill to other guys. At this time in my life, I just wasn't listening or watching to full podcasts. However, I did see some pretty good reaction videos from Better Bachelor and Think Before You Sleep, before he cucked out to Brittany Venti. My thoughts on the podcast were pretty similar to Better Bachelor's, actually. I thought that they were only just going to go up from here. I didn't think there would be so much drama surrounding the channel. Eventually, I would just move past creators like Fresh and Fit and Just Pearly Things for better creators like Undead Chronic and The Warband. But there was that time in my life where I thought that Fresh and Fit were actual content creators and were not grifters. To cap off this segment, I just want to say, oh, how the mighty have fallen. Unlike most episodes of Scurvy's Shit List where I'm just talking about one doofus, I'm talking about two this time. So let's start off with Myron. When I learned that this guy was a Fed, it made me quite skeptical about the legitimacy of the podcast. Before learning this information, I thought these two were just players trying to teach young men some tips and tricks on being successful with women. Now, I question if the whole fucking podcast is just one giant psyop. There's a good chance that it might be, especially if you know the kinds of shit the government gets up to. I know it might seem like a pretty far stretch, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was part of some kind of MK Ultra type shit. Let's get to the other reason why I don't like Myron, and that's his temperament on the show these days. The main gimmick of a show like Fresh and Fit or the Whatever podcast is that they're supposed to be letting the women tell on themselves for basically being stupid, and the guys are there to basically prove them wrong. Even in the past, the podcast was always pretty heated. However, Myron was there to control the heat levels of things, but also to provide with some decent advice, and also to prove these stupid women wrong. I think the turning point when Myron was once the level-headed voice of reason to the podcast tyrant he is now happened when he basically was forced to kick off an unruly guest. And I think that influenced him in a negative way. Now, when a woman on the show says something he disagrees with, he's not going to be level-headed about things. He's not going to provide an actual counterpoint. He's just going to say, get off the show, I don't want you here. She's being unruly, get her off the show. Don't get me wrong, that shit gets views for, like, the Shorts channel that they have. However, it's very dishonest, especially when it's the woman who's not being unruly. It's you, Myron. You're the one who's being unruly. If you'd learn from your betters, like Undead Chronic, you'd understand that your job is to let them rhetorically corner themselves, and then you provide with actual good points. But you're not doing that, and that's a big reason why the Whatever podcast is actually doing a lot better than yours. Alrighty, let's get to Tweedledummer here. First off, no, you did not have sex with 1,000 women. That's a lie that you promote on your website in order to dupe guys out of their money for your quote-unquote course. Second off, what do you actually do on the show these days? I just see you, like, sitting around most of the time while your co-host, the Tyrant, is just screaming in everyone's faces. I also remember you, in the olden days, give out some pretty solid advice, too. What happened to that? Behind the scenes, I could certainly tell that you're the brains behind this operation, and my goodness, some of the decisions that you made for the channel, especially when you got demonetized for a brief period in time, weren't all that great. I haven't forgotten the cringy thumbnails and titles of you guys trying to educate us about finance. I would not get my financial advice from someone like you two clowns. But now, let's go over your biggest blunder yet. I firmly believe that you are now up there with the likes of Jack Murphy in terms of how far you have abandoned your principles. Your dumbass decided to get a Chinese hooker pregnant, and you were buying her all this shit, trying to get your mom to approve the relationship. I know what happened, and it was pretty fucking bad. A principle of the manosphere is that you don't date hookers. You don't date OnlyFans models. And what did this fucker do? He dated a prostitute. Both of these fuckers reiterated that standard piece of advice, and guess what? Fresh didn't follow it. I, and many other guys like me, will look at you and laugh at you, and we're not gonna look back. Now I kinda see why he's always quiet on the show these days. It's probably because if he opens his mouth, the chat is gonna fucking dogpile on him and rip on him for getting a prostitute pregnant. Oh, and before anybody in the comments corrects me, I know his name is Walter. So, why are these two on my shit list? Well, Fed and Fraud basically duped the manosphere into thinking that they are a reliable source of information, but in reality, they're just hardcore grifters. Another good lesson you could take away from this is that you have to judge people based on their actions. Words mean nothing in today's age, especially when informational warfare is going on. This principle is the same reason why I don't trust Pearl and Real Femme Sapien. A lot of creators on my side of the internet like to say this, and I'll say it too. Question what you're told. This applies to me too. If you disagree with me with something, feel free to point it out and we'll have a discussion in the comments. With all that being said, thanks for watching everyone. I'll be sure to have the Scurvy Shitlist Season 3 trailer up very soon.